The Capital Investment Committee hearing for March 15th is called to order. We don't have a quorum, so we'll wait for that, Representative Hanson. So members, we have a pretty packed agenda, and so we'll be hearing 16 bills on an informational only basis. Each bill has been allotted 5 minutes with one testifier and an additional testifier for technical support. So before we get started, I just want to acknowledge the birthday of our committee administrator, Jenny Nash. She has done a lot of great work putting together our packed agenda, and so I just want to say thank you and happy birthday to Jenny. So first up, we got Representative Lee, House File 1010. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Please proceed.
Just 21. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and committee members for allowing me to present House File 1010 today. This is a very important bill to the city of St. Paul, and in particular the east side, which I represent. It's an area of the city that has historically not been invested in. So we are very thrilled that the St. Paul Port Authority has purchased the former Hillcrest golf site with the intention of cleaning up the contaminated land and turning it into a development site with affordable housing and jobs, good paying union jobs with livable wages and parks and gardens with the goal of becoming a carbon-free community. This is a $13 million request for site analysis, planning, design, and engineering. And the Port Authority will also be matching this $13 million. There should be handouts in your packets showing the budget breakdown. I am thrilled to be carrying this bill and look forward to the transformation for our community. With me today, I'd like to introduce my testifier, Todd Hurley, the CEO of the St. Paul Port Authority.
Welcome. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Thank you, Chair Lee, members of the committee. My name is Todd Hurley, and I am the President and CEO of the St. Paul Port Authority. I'd like to thank the committee for the opportunity to present our request in front of you today. I would also like to mention that I do have several members of the St. Paul Port Authority here should there be additional questions on our project. I'll be speaking from a packet that was provided to the committee earlier. By way of introduction, for those of you committee members not familiar with the St. Paul Port Authority, the St. Paul Port Authority is a statewide economic development agency created by state law in 1929. And we have, as a statewide agency, we do have joint powers agreements with 70 different counties throughout the state of Minnesota. We were formed back in 1929, really with a focus on river commerce and managing the 4 port terminals in the city of St. Paul, in addition to our partnership with the Ports Association and members in there, including the city of Duluth, the city of Red Wing, and the city of Winona. Our main mission here, though, today is our mission around brownfields economic development with the end goal of the creation of quality jobs, tax base, with a sustainable and equitable lens. If you move on to page 3 of the handout, that is the Heights project and the site plan for the project. I should start by saying that the Heights is a 112-acre site on the east side of St. Paul. It is actually located in the most northeast corner of the city of St. Paul. It is the former Hillcrest Golf Course. That was a private golf course that closed in 2017 and was put on the market for sale. During that sales period, it was discovered that this site, this golf course, actually had some pretty significant challenges for redevelopment. One being that the site is contaminated, and 2, that the site has some pretty big challenges as far as the topography of the site, in that the site does have height changes, elevation changes of 70 feet throughout the site. When these things were discovered, at that point when the St. Paul Port Authority stepped in and purchased the site back in 2019. In the 3 years since then, we have been working with the community on community outreach for what they would like to see on this site. In addition to that, we have worked with the city to create and adopt a master plan and have also begun the design and engineering of the site. In looking at the picture on page 3, you can see that the site does provide for 24 acres zoned for housing, 54 acres zoned for light industrial, a 6-acre park with the remainder of the site as passive green space, roads, and utilities. Moving into page 4 is the real reason why we're here today, and that is the budget to do the public infrastructure work on the site with which the St. Paul Port Authority has been charged with. On page 4, the sources and uses lay out the actual cost to get this site prepared for vertical construction. And the sites here, or the costs here are actually a bit extraordinary because of the site challenges. You can see on this page that this budget calls for just over $50 million in investment to deliver the site shovel-ready to end users. The purpose also of this is to break out the costs between public and private costs as appropriate for the opportunity to use GO bonds from the state of Minnesota. When you run through the uses, you can see there are typical costs here on the site around design and engineering, roads and utilities for $16 million, and a contribution to the park. But the big number that we were trying to solve here is really a combination of the environmental and the grading and site prep. And those numbers are $26 million of that $50 million budget. Working over to the sources, we are bringing local sources to this project. The top two sources are St. Paul Port Authority funds in the $9.5 million. We were fortunate enough to work with our partners around the remediation and the jobs for $4 million in grants and other funding. There is $24 million in land sales on this site, and those land sales must be used for the construction of the public infrastructure. And the remaining finance, the final piece of this $50 million puzzle, is that $13 million general obligation bonding ask of the state legislature. I did put on here for informational purposes the split between public costs and private costs, and working with MMB on that. $32 million of these costs are dedicated to the public costs of land.
Mr. Hurley, can I have you wrap up, please?
Yes. I'll move ahead quickly then. The state bonding, we did work with MMB to make sure the language works and the uses are appropriate. And really just to wrap this up, at the end of the day, once remediation is done, this site will end up with job opportunities on 54 acres over 6 parcels for over 1,000 living wage jobs, $100 million in private investments. On the housing side of this, the 24 acres, we have a site plan will accommodate 1,000+ housing units on these side, ranging in affordability, ranging in density from single family to multifamily.
Thank you, Mr. Hurley. Representative Lee, any quick closing comments?
Thank you, Chair Lee. It's a good bill, good project, and I hope you'll fund it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, Representative Finke, House File 1692. Welcome. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Lee and members. Presenting House File 1692, which is an appropriation to Gibbs Farm. I will turn it directly over to the testifier.
Welcome. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Thank you. My name is Chad Roberts. I'm the president and CEO of the Ramsey County Historical Society, which owns and operates Gibbs Farm. Thank you, Chair Lee and members of this committee. We are requesting $9.4 million for Gibbs Farm to build a new education building and other site improvements that will allow the seasonal site to operate year-round and double the number of students that it serves. Gibbs Farm is a National Register of Historic Sites location, and we've been educating Minnesota's youth there since 1954. We provide unique out-of-classroom education experiences for 15,000 elementary-age students every year. This is the maximum capacity for Gibbs Farm in the months in which it is actually open during the school year, because it's a seasonal site. In addition, outreach and digital programs reach another 5,000 students that cannot reach the site in person. All of our programming addresses Minnesota state education standards, and that's very important to the educators that we work very closely with. Project increases our on-site capacity from 15,000 students to 30,000 students and supports the addition of a year-round after-school program, provides appropriate shelter for Dakota people engaged in on-site cultural activities because Dakota programming is a key part of what we do, and adds a museum quality preservation facility that will help us preserve about the 4.5 million items that we actually are responsible for. We work with hundreds of teachers every year. And those of you that work with teachers know they're incredible people that have to be superheroes in the classroom and outside sometimes. They've also identified for us and others that certain topics are hard for them to teach. Early Minnesota history can be a problem. Indigenous culture can be a challenge because they simply don't have the background. We do, and we've had this experience working closely with Dakota people to develop that expertise over the last 23 years. We address both of those topics, early agricultural history and indigenous culture, in maker activities, participatory theater, on-site tours, hands-on programming. There is not another program like it in the state of Minnesota. I want to point out that a study out of the Rice University in Houston over 2 years involving 6,000 students identified that participating in field trips like going to Gibbs Farm increases academic performance across all subjects, increases engagement with school, and substantially reduces disciplinary issues in the classroom. We know that investing in Gibbs Farm and making it accessible to more students across our region will in fact improve academic performance for students. Gibbs Farm is a regional asset. I want to stress that. More than half of the students that visit come from all over the place. Central Minnesota, southern Minnesota, we draw kids from western Wisconsin. Less than half come from Ramsey County, okay? We're asking the state for $9.4 million. Ramsey County has committed $7.2 million. The National Endowment for the Humanities has committed $750,000. And RCHS donors have already committed more than $3 million to this project, and we're continuing to raise more to support endowment growth and program expansion so that students, regardless of their economic situation, will be able to participate in the programs that we offer. This is our 4th year participating in this process. There is a companion bill in the Senate, Senate File 1582, and we're hoping for your support. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Seeing no members' question, Representative Finke, closing comments.
Gibbs Farm, thank you, Chair. Gibbs Farm is in my legislative district, but it's a very unique educational asset to the state of Minnesota as a whole, and I would appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. The next bill on the agenda, Representative Finke, House File 1675. Please proceed, Representative Finke.
Thank you, Chair and members. This is an appropriation for the Como Zoo, and I will turn it over to the zoo.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Michelle Furr, and I am the director at Como Park Zoo and Conservatory. Our request today is for $22 million in asset preservation and betterment of capital nature of infrastructure and exhibits at Como Zoo, and specifically for our big cat habitat. Como's over century-old facility needs to be updated with modern zoological upgrades, energy efficiencies, and ADA requirements. Some of you may recall that recently this committee has talked to us and visited talking about orangutans in our entry exhibits. However, our priorities have needed to shift. This past summer, preparing for some preventative maintenance on our big cat habitat and the bridges, we discovered that the over 40-year-old habitat had some structural integrity issues, and we had to close most of it to the public. If unfamiliar, this habitat is a multi-layer of bridges overlooking our lions and tigers with an upper section with snow leopards and cougars, and an indoor building that on one side is all stairs, and on the other side, the only way to access it is through those bridges. Imagine our over 2 million visitors and the number of strollers, wheelchairs, scooters, and just people who have challenges using stairs, what that did to our visitorship. Now, we've worked through a temporary emergency solution to shore up those bridges, and just earlier this month, after 7 months, we've been able to reopen this habitat. But we recognize that this is a shift in our priorities of our next capital projects. As we navigate through this issue, we may be forced again to close this permanently due to the ADA requirements and send off all these animals to other AZA, Association of Zoos and Aquarium Zoos, and not provide that meaningful connection to our guests. This area represents 1/6 of our animal collection at the zoo. We're only about 14 acres and we serve over 2 million visitors per year. In the 1950s, Como was one of the first zoos in North America and maybe around the world to successfully hand-raise Siberian tigers, and this was really impactful to the species survival of these animals. We also in our collection have snow leopards, which have a genetic diversity that is unrepresented in the US zoos. They came from both France and Germany as a species survival plan program. And our cougars are currently, were rescues from the West Coast. They were both orphaned. We tried to surrogate them with wild cougars. And when that didn't happen, we were one of the selected zoos to be able to take in these animals, again, to maintain the species. Our mission at Como is to inspire the public to have those animal ambassadors to make those connections that foster appreciation, preservation, and conservation. We are able to fulfill this effort with the support of you while still keeping Como free of charge for all Minnesotans to visit every day of the year. And so I want to thank you for your time and introduce any questions that people may have.
Representative Lilly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry about your loss of your giraffe recently, and great fan of your facility.
Thank you, Representative Lee and members of the committee. It's always tough to lose a signature animal, and some of you actually have met Daisy, the giraffe. It's hard, but it also is a testament to the care that we were able to give to those animals. We work with the University of Minnesota School of Veterinary Science and Medicine, and animals live much longer in our care than they do in the wild, their wild counterparts. And so with the breeding programs that I mentioned, our giraffes were also part of that, where they were so genetically introduced amongst the zoos that we actually had to stop breeding that gene pool. So Daisy will live on within the zoos around the country.
Seeing no other questions, Representative Finke, closing comments.
Thank you, Chair and members. Como Zoo is one of the few remaining free zoos in the United States. It's a great asset to the state of Minnesota. Last time I took my kids, the large cat boardwalk was closed and they were devastated. Let's not do that to more kids. Let's get that boardwalk open.
Thank you, Representative Finke. Next on the agenda, we have two bills for Chair Newton. First up, House File 139. Welcome, Chair Newton. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. The first bill that I'd like to present is House File 139. It's for a regional trail bridge connecting two of the major trails in the city of Coon Rapids. With me today, I also have a birthday boy, Tim Himmer, who is the Public Works Director for the city of Coon Rapids, and he'll present the information on the bill.
Welcome, Director. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Thank you, Chair Lee. My name is Tim Himmer. I'm the Public Works Director for the City of Coon Rapids. I again would like to thank you for the opportunity to be here and to accommodate me to speak on two items fairly quickly. So I'll try to keep it brief because I know you've got lots of priorities and other requests in front of you. The city is requesting $3.5 million to complete our construction funding package for a pedestrian bridge over Coon Rapids Boulevard. This is a pedestrian bridge that's located on the Coon Creek Regional Trail that traverses through the city, connecting several regional parks as well as crossing the dam into Hennepin County. One of the significant barriers is Coon Rapids Boulevard itself. It carries over 25,000 vehicles a day. It's 6 lanes wide. There's been quite a bit of public and private investment in this area with Anoka County and the city. We've upgraded streetscape lighting, our park system in the last few years to the tune of $17 million throughout the community. We would like today to complete this funding package, not only for this Coon Creek Regional Trail, but it also connects to the Mississippi River Bikeway Trail and also over again into Hennepin County. In addition to being a recreational trail, it also provides some opportunity for alternative transportation for the new housing units that have come into that area to get them down into the Minneapolis area. So I am happy to answer any questions, and again, I appreciate your time.
I see no questions. Thank you. Chair Newton, any closing comments on this bill?
This is a good bill, Mr. Chair, and I ask that you support it.
Thank you, Chair Newton. Next on the agenda, House File 2188. Chair Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is our priority in Coon Rapids. For almost 38 years, we've been trying to get this interchange built. It connects Coon Rapids Boulevard, East River Road, and Highway 610. And once again, Mr. Himmer will make the presentation of the bill.
Director, please identify yourself again and proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name again is Tim Himmer. I'm the Coon Rapids Public Works Director. As Representative Newton pointed out, this is the main priority for the city of Coon Rapids. I've been there for over 10 years. This has been something that's been on my plate for that entire time. We're looking for $20 million. Primarily, this is construction funding. We're appreciative. We did receive $1.5 million back in 2020, and we have put that to good use. We've done robust public engagement. We've developed multiple alternatives trying to fight the challenges of the regional system and the local system. If any of you have driven into that area on 610, it's very difficult to get to and from this. You're taking extra trips across the river, turning around, emergency personnel, very difficult to get to. In 2018, Anoka County and the city of Coon Rapids took the opportunity on a railroad overpass project on Foley Boulevard. We realigned that road and basically redesigned the project to accommodate and give future opportunities for this 610 interchange. We're not looking for a new interchange. We're just looking to complete the existing interchange that only allows access to and from one direction. At the local level, we have put forth what we can. We've arrived at a non-typical solution, what we're calling our preferred alternative, the Northeast Loop. You won't see that anywhere else in the state. What we've tried to do is really improve the safety and reliability on both the local and the regional systems, increase access to this area for economic development, and it's minimized the impacts for adjacent property owners as well as the community as a whole. We're very interested in completing this once and for all, getting good access in and out of Coon Rapids and solving a few problems, not only locally, but also on that regional system. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Members, any questions? Thank you. Chair Nguyen, any closing comments?
No, Mr. Chair and members, this is really an important project, and I request your support. Thank you very much for giving us your time.
Thank you, Chair Nguyen. Next on the agenda, Chair Hornstein, House File 998. Welcome, Chair Hornstein. Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. I'm very happy to present House File 998. This bill will help the city of Minneapolis bring its pedestrian curb ramps up to ADA standards. And the City of Minneapolis Public Works Department has been constructing pedestrian curb ramps since 1970. When initially constructed, the pedestrian curb ramps were consistent with the design and criteria of that time. However, ongoing modifications to ADA criteria and guidance has resulted in a large number of pedestrian curb ramps that no longer comply with the 2010 ADA standards. So overall, Minneapolis has jurisdiction over 17,800 ramps. Currently, approximately 6,200 ramps are in good condition, and approximately 35% of all pedestrian curb ramps, that's 35% of all pedestrian curb ramps within Minneapolis. The city's working to upgrade the remaining 65%. The estimated cost to complete pedestrian curb ramp and APS upgrades across the city is $430 million in 2021 dollars. This bonding proposal will help the city complete this important project. And members, again, as we really move towards more safe pedestrian and active transportation options, I think this is very critical to that. And I have one testifier, Kathleen Mayell, who's the Transportation and Planning Engineer from Minneapolis Public Works. Mr. Chair.
Welcome. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair Lee and committee members. My name is Kathleen Mayell. I'm a Transportation Planning Manager at the Minneapolis Public Works Transportation Planning and Programming Division, and I'm pleased to testify today in support of House File 998, which would provide $10 million in general obligation funds to the city of Minneapolis to help with our pedestrian curb ramp upgrades. As noted, the city's been working for decades to bring curb ramps up to the Americans with Disability Act standards as required by the federal government. Minneapolis has over 17,800 curb ramps. We have been upgrading in earnest over decades, and we've upgraded 35% of these. We are looking to make progress on the remaining 65. At a current rate, that would take approximately 25 years. This funding will ensure that the city can accelerate this important project to ensure that all residents have access to our sidewalk network. This effort is aligned with recent plans and policy that the city has passed that center safety, equity, and mobility as transportation goals. Ensuring accessibility to our over 1,600 miles of city-owned sidewalks is a priority, and it also aligns with our Complete Streets policy. We currently upgrade about 460 ramps a year through various capital programs, including our standalone curb ramp program, our street resurfacing and rehab programs, our defective sidewalks and sidewalk gap program, individual street reconstruction projects, and works coordinated with development and utility work. These funds would allow us to meaningfully accelerate our efforts within these programs. Thank you to Chair Hornstein for carrying this bill, and thank you again for the opportunity to testify in support of it. I'm happy to stand for any questions.
So, Ms. Mayo, I have some questions for you. So, I have heard from the county regarding when the Met Council goes in and put in their BRT routes and whatnot, that the Met Council doesn't address some curbs. And so how does that interact with this proposal? Does, when the Met Council go through with their BRT projects, does that impact city streets? And will that impact this request at all? Or do you know what is the relationship between that?
Chair Lee and committee members, thank you for the question. The Met Council current practices for their BRT project is that at the corresponding intersection locations where the station platform is, they will upgrade those ADA ramps. It's currently on the city, or if it's a county road, the city or county jurisdiction to fund the corresponding two intersections. So this money would overall help with, filling those needs along with the other needs on our 17,800 corners. Yes.
And then how is the city going to go about prioritizing where they start with the projects if this appropriation was signed into law?
Committee Chair Lee and committee members, thanks for the question. We currently, through our different programs, prioritize in different ways. We align with our resurfacing program, so we are minimizing disruptions and maximizing efficiency for projects. That's done on a neighborhood basis. That's has a prioritization process based on age of when the streets were originally constructed. Additional programs are some of our other programs are, for example, our street reconstruction projects, and the ADA ramps that are improved with those are done through our 20-year streets funding plan, which prioritizes equity, racial and economic equity, in terms of how those streets come up to for their time. So we will work to build in additional resources into our existing programs and continue to deliver around the city.
Thank you. Chair Hornstein, any closing comments?
Mr. Chair and members, I just really appreciate your hearing this bill and giving it consideration. And I would also, echo the equity and the complete streets piece of this. It's very, very important. All of this fits together, and particularly for our members of our this ADA compliant community.
Thank you, Chair. Next on the agenda, we have Representative Kiel, House File 948. Welcome, Representative Kiel. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee. My testifier is in Washington, D.C. doing other work on Polk County. So I will be it today. Polk County has 3 bridges, and they're located on the Red River, between Polk County and Trail County in North Dakota. So the 2 bridges that we would like to do local bridge replacement on are in Climax, Minnesota, which is still functioning but having problems, and Neilsville, which is completely gone, shot. And the importance of these bridges between North Dakota and Minnesota is that this is ag country, and a lot of transportation goes between both areas. A lot of trucks during harvest, planting equipment, and of course it is always dealing with flooding. The Neilsville Bridge is in underwater at the spring of the year. So the proposal is to lift it up a bit, and of course, some of the funding will come from North Dakota on their portion of that bill. So I guess is there any questions?
So Representative Kiel, can you speak a little bit more? So is this a bridge that's connecting, if I'm hearing it correctly, North Dakota and Polk County, Minnesota then?
Yes, that is correct.
And then how much is the overall project cost, and then how much is North Dakota putting into this?
They did not share with me how much North Dakota was putting into this. We would be requesting, they think the estimated cost of the Climax Bridge is $200 million, with Polk County's share being $6,500,000 for the construction. I think the difference depends on where the roads are meeting with the rivers, how much construction has to be done. I believe Neilsville, there is some heightened costs there because the bridge is low. So reconstruction for the estimated cost of Neilsville is 2 million, or 12, excuse me, big difference, 12 million. And Polk County's share would be 7 million of that.
Okay. Members, any additional questions? Seeing none, Representative Kiel, any closing comments?
Just that I would hope that you would support this to promote economic value in the valley. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Kiel. Next on the agenda, Chair Lislegard, House File 960. Welcome, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. This is a really big deal. Chair Lee and Chair Hansen, who sit on the Environment Committee, you know what PFAS is doing to society. And the bill that this bonding opportunity, that's what this is going to address. Northeast Minnesota is going to lead the way. With me today, I have Dave Finke that is going to walk through the bill.
Welcome, please identify yourself and proceed.
Thank you, Chair, the committee members. I'm Dave Finke. I'm the Director of St. Louis County Environmental Services, and I'm here today to present our project request of $20 million to ask for an integrated solid waste management campus, which includes, you have it in your handout, includes several components as they're outlined. Specifically, we are looking at trying to develop a leachate treatment system at this site. About 6 years ago, for a little background, our regulator, our MPCA engineer, came to our current facility at the Virginia regional landfill that I think, Chair Lee, you've actually been at. The engineer told us at that time, we were one of 8 facilities within the state, landfill facilities, that actually land, apply, and treat our leachate. We're very proud of never having any compliance boundary issues of any contaminants leaving our site. PFAS was an emergent contaminant of concern, and they said we will be shutting you down in the next few years, and we'll be utilizing your contingency action as part of the permit, which would include us hauling, for our facility, hauling this and dumping it into Lake Superior. Our very proactive board said we are not interested in doing that, and we know that we can treat this on site like we had been doing for 30 years at this facility. Concurrently, our very proactive board identified the need for a long-term MSW management solution in the region. So at that time, the MPCA was developing a regional plan, a 10-year regional plan that addressed the long-term need for MSW management and additionally leachate management to control any leachate that was going to be eventually put into Lake Superior. And this is what this bill and this request addresses today. This solid waste management plan that's been identified for a 10-year plan, this facility here is identified within that 10-year plan, and we have all of the support of the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency currently with our demonstration research project that we are illustrating that we can control PFAS, and we want to develop a regional site for a repository for closed landfill leachate, all industrial, and other landfill leachate that ends up in Lake Superior right now.
Members, any questions? Representative Skraba.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Finke, does this help treat the Western Lake Superior Sanitary District's treatment, their Class B or whatever their treat when it comes out?
Director Finke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Skraba, this does not. This identifies just with landfill leachate. There's about 36,000 gallons that end up with all the other landfills that currently actually bring it to the WLSSD. But the domestic wastewater piece that you are speaking of, it does not address that. It addresses just the landfill leachate in the region.
Representative Skraba.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One other comment. This is not in my district, but in my district in Lake County and Cook County, we have landfills that need to be removed. And this would be a place for them to bring them. Instead of bringing that all over the state, it would be a closer area, and it would save a lot of money for everybody involved. So I applaud what you're doing. Thank you.
Chair Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Representative Lislegard, we've talked about this a little bit before. Just wanted to make sure for storage, how do you, if the testifier can describe, how do you store this so it doesn't leak or permeate into the lining? We get into breakdown products, and is there going to be kind of ongoing monitoring to, maybe if you could just describe the safety measures that are involved in that?
Director Finke.
Thank you, Chair Lee and committee member. Currently, we have a 30-year-old double, triple line pond. We have lysimeters that actually, under that, the clay liner and the double lined plastic lined ponds. This is part of the Subtitle D type treatment that has existed since the early 80s. And there's never been a situation where the landfill liner had leached, and we're going to utilize that to store it in ponds to do some pre-treatment before all of the other components that are outlined in the handout that you have does the final treatment, including a wetland. But the storage would be contained within those ponds and monitored very heavily with any kind of leakage within that through these lysimeters that actually capture any of the leakage through those liners.
Chair Hansen.
Follow-up, thank you, Chair Lee. And then I'm wondering about some more of the elemental contaminants, whether it's mercury, radium, selenium, those type of things, and just monitoring for that, of those persistent elements.
Director Finke.
Thank you, Chair Lee. Committee Member Hansen. We monitor for over 250 different parameters right now as a requirement of our permit. And this would be the same thing. All of those elements, what we are doing right now with our demonstration research project, focusing on PFAS, but all of those elements that you described, those parameters, PFAS is analyzed down to parts per trillion. So if we can capture and contain all of the elements, all of the compounds within that PFAS parameter, all of the other elements we don't worry about. Everything else is treated with that and actually captured in this closed loop system.
Chair Hansen.
One final, checking on microplastics, any efforts on collection or if that's analyzed as well?
Director Finke.
Thank you, Chair Lee and Committee Member Hansen. Microplastics, we don't have to, as a requirement, we don't, but part of the components here within the system that we are currently working through their demonstration research project contains an ultrafiltration piece, a component that would, I'm assuming, capture most of those that would be contained in the leachate.
Representative Carroll, last question.
Thank you, Chair. Real quickly, looking at I didn't hear you mention it during your presentation, but looking at this handout, looks like you plan on putting solar on the closed landfill. Can you address that and talk about it, and how much it'll be?
Director Finke.
Thank you, Chair Lee.
The final treatment, Mr. Chair and committee members, the final treatment that we are using is RO. So reverse osmosis will be the final leg of the treatment so that nothing gets out of these, any discharged water will have gone through the RO system. We're using the solar panels to create the power to perform the RO so that it stays, we're generating our own power to do our own treatment.
Commissioner, can I have you identify yourself for the record, please?
I am St. Louis County Commissioner Keith Nelson. And thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me to address this.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Representative Lislegard and Director. Really appreciate you giving us a few minutes of your time to walk through the program, the projects that you have, and maybe Chair Hansen, it might be worthwhile for us in the near future to have a joint hearing on the impacts of PFAS and how that's going to impact capital requests coming to our committee in the future. So thank you all for the discussion today. Next on the agenda, Representative Smith, House File 1212. Welcome. Please proceed.
All right, thank you, Chair Lee and committee for hearing this bill. Rochester is the second largest metropolitan area in the state of Minnesota. We are a rapidly expanding city, and with that comes a lot of needs that we have as we continue to provide not just for our 121,000 residents in Rochester, but for the larger region of southeastern Minnesota. Things like the airport, things like our thriving downtown, which holds, of course, the Mayo Clinic, is why we are coming here today to ask for this regional park and ride parking facility. There is a one-pager in your packet that I would encourage you to look at, but thankfully, I have a wonderful testifier today, current mayor of Rochester and former member of the Minnesota House of Representatives, Kim Norton.
Welcome back to the House, Mayor. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Thank you. Kim Norton, Mayor of the City of Rochester. Thank you, Chair Lee, for hearing our bill, Representative Smith for carrying it, and for our bipartisan local support on this bill as well. We're very pleased with that. This is a request for a 200-stall parking facility along Broadway, which is the main street through Rochester. It brings people into our community and heads them into the city amenities in our downtown area. There are clear climate and environmental benefits for this project. This parking deck will help support the city's goal to increase transit ridership, decrease vehicle mile travels and single occupancy vehicle use, and curb greenhouse gas emissions through transportation mode shifts, which we're working on. The proposed transit facility will make bus use a more attractive option for our residents and commuters. As a regional hub for workforce and commerce, we host over 20,000 commuters a day into Rochester. This regional activity would benefit from this park and ride in two important ways. One, during the weekdays, this park and ride would provide a great option along that transit corridor for commuting into downtown where our largest employer and other small businesses reside. We know there's a desire and a need for this due to previous and current nearby parking lots that we lease for this purpose currently. And secondly, the park and ride would be adjacent to a very popular active senior living center, which has seen a resurgence since the use of pandemic with over 4,000 members. This senior center is also up against our indoor sports facility that hosts one of the few 50-meter pools in the state and is used on the weekends quite heavily for state swimming meets. And it's also a busy ice arena hosting amateur level hockey. So during the weekdays, it can be for commuters. On the weekends and in the evenings, it can have a multiple purpose of servicing, again, a different regional purpose. So for the environmental and regional economic impacts this project has, we would ask for your support and consideration in a future bonding bill.
Thank you, Mayor. So Representative or Mayor, so I see here on the language, it's for pre-design, design, environmental analysis, and then further down it says that the city have expended some amounts for pre-design, design, engineering. And so can you just confirm, is this request of the $4 million still for pre-design, design, or has that work been completed?
To my knowledge, that work has not been completed, and that is what the purpose of this, the $4 million funding would be for.
And then,
I'm seeing nods from others in the room, so that is the case.
And so just to be clear then, there hasn't been any amount that's expended by the city for pre-design, design, and engineering as that last sentence in the proposal?
Heather, would you like to step forward? Could you qualify that? She says there's been a tiny amount, but not for the purposes that we're talking about here in creating and building the structure, just more pre-design, if you will, to get support of the city council.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, Representative Smith, any closing comments?
Thank you for listening to the bill, and we're sort of a new member of the Class A cities when you look at the full history of Minnesota, but we're the fastest growing, and so we need more and more money to help build that infrastructure for a growing city. So thank you for hearing this bill.
Thank you, Representative Smith. So next on the
Thank you.
agenda, we have House File 1792. Representative McDonald will be joining us online. Welcome, Representative McDonald. Please proceed.
Mr. Chair and members, thank you very so much, and thank you for the opportunity to meet via Zoom. I'm sitting here with the city engineer, Sean, who's going to just explain the project, but it's a project for the fine city of Delano for expansion of our industrial park. Delano is one of the fastest growing cities here in Wright County, and it's just quite adjacent to Hennepin County, as you all know. We incidentally do have the oldest and largest 4th of July parade in the state of Minnesota. I thought I'd just throw that out there. But with that, I want to introduce our city administrator, and he will explain the ask for $3.2 million in the project that we have for our industrial park. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members.
Welcome, Director. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Sean Lawaji, and I serve as the City Engineer, Public Works Director for the City of Delano. Thank you for considering our request today for the West Metro Business Park. As Representative McDonald mentioned, we're located just west of the Minneapolis-St. Paul metro area in Wright County. I'd like to highlight some of the accomplishments of the first phase of the project. In partnership with the state of Minnesota through its TED and BDPI funding programs, the city embarked on an initial development that provided 60 acres of commercial and industrial land along US Highway 12. A few of the current businesses located in the park include Tuffy Streets, a branch of Perham-based KLN family brands, and Landscape Structures, a Delano-based playground manufacturer, were the first two manufacturers that developed in the West Metro Business Park. First phase of the park is reaching capacity. This success brings us to the need for the phase two. The handout has been provided outlines the area and map growth patterns for phase two. In addition to the local investment of over $5.4 million to date for the first phase, the next phase needs an additional $3.2 million to create 120 plus acres of development opportunity. This investment will allow the extension of city utilities and streets to those undeveloped areas for future development. We're also working collaboratively with the NSF Railroad on a potential rail spur to serve Business Park and with the Wright County on stormwater management improvements in the park. With this improvement in the partnerships we formed to date, we believe West Metro Business Park will continue to flourish and support our region and Minnesota as a place for manufacturing and industrial growth. We would ask for your support and assistance in the form of $3.2 million of investment to the infrastructure. Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members, and Representative McDonald for this opportunity and your consideration.
Thank you, Director. Seeing no questions or comments, Representative McDonald, any quick closing comments?
Yeah, real quick, Mr. Chair, it's a pleasure to be with you a second time now in the last couple of weeks, and I appreciate all the hard work you and the committee do, and lead Chair Erdahl. Thank you for the good work you do, and you guys all have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative McDonald. Next up, Representative Jacob, House File 2180. Welcome. Please proceed.
Well, thank you, Chair Lee and committee for hearing our North Sunboro sanitary sewer bill today. This project really, it serves 5 communities, including Zumbrota, Goodhue, Wanamango, Pine Island, and the Prairie Island community, Elk Run area located between Pine Island and Rochester. The bill would appropriate $47.7 million and has bipartisan support. The project provides significant economy of scale and will certainly be a model for other communities once it's completed. And most importantly, the project provides significant environmental protections that are sorely needed due to 2 of the current facilities being located in flood zones. We've got 2 testifiers here today. I've got Mayor of Pine Island, David Freeze, if you want to go first, and then we've got Blake Johnson here from the Prairie Island Indian community as well. So,
Welcome, Mayor. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is David Freeze. I'm the mayor of Pine Island, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. You have before you a unique request, and that this is a project that is very impactful to the area. Not only is the North Zumbro Sanitary District a solution to the problem of aging infrastructures in our 4 rural communities of Minnesota, but the project is also economically sound with a focus on being conscientious towards our effects on the environment. We are taking 4 existing aging treatment plants to combine and build into one that's going to be impacting nearly 10,000 residents in southeastern Minnesota. The communities of Goodhue, Pine Island, Wanamingo, and Zumbrota have wastewater treatment facilities that are nearing the end of their life cycles. In addition, the Prairie Island Indian community has partnered with our 4 communities and have been in full support of this project. Prairie Island recently purchased around 1,200 acres of land just adjacent to the city of Pine Island downtown and would benefit as a partner in the district. In a collaborative effort, the communities have been exploring the anticipated costs and feasibility of a regional sanitary sewer district to process the municipal wastewater. Benefits of a regional facility include gained efficiencies due to an economy of scale, which could lead to a lower cost per gallon for treatment, staff efficiencies including better wastewater operator retention, a single point of discharge into a public receiving water instead of 4, and 1 wastewater discharge permit to manage and comply with. It's also going to be a decreased long-term financial burden on each of these communities involved. We are asking for an appropriation of $47.7 million, which is half of the $95 million needed to complete this project. And when this project comes to fruition, it will certainly be a model for other communities across the great state of Minnesota. And I thank you for your time and your consideration for our proposal on House File 2180.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Johnson, please identify yourself and proceed.
Thank you, Chair Lee and committee members. My name is Blake Johnson. I'm the Senior State Government Relations Specialist for the Prairie Island Indian Community and also a tribal member. My Dakota name is Hokshida Mazawambri, which means Iron Eagle Boy. I grew up on the reservation and lived through what we have to deal with today and through the years of my family. And so what this relates to is the speech that President Johnson gave on the House floor on Sovereignty Day, and that is the trifecta that we deal with. In 1930, the first part of the trifecta, in 1930, the Army Corps of Engineers built Lock and Dam 3 just south of our reservation. It flooded more than half of our lands at that time, where we still see lands that are still underwater to this day and deal with flooding yearly from the Mississippi River. And then we go into 1970, where the Prairie Island Nuclear Power Plant was built and is still in operations today. It's nearly 700 yards away from our community where the waste sits, and we have to bear the burden of a waste sitting there with no solution from the federal government. And so we have to deal with the risk of any type of emergency or having to leave our reservation and not come back. And then finally, the freight rail tracks that bisect our only access on and off the reservation. It carries Bakken crude oil, and at any time, it can train derails. It could affect anybody coming on and off our reservation and being stuck. So with that, we were able to agree with the state and the nuclear power plant to find up to 1,500 acres within a 50-mile radius of our community. And the 1,200 acres that we purchased by Pine Island is a part of that solution. And so building out the infrastructure needs for our community to have a safe and a viable space for our community to grow is huge. And the benefit of this project could help tremendously with the start of that. So we highly support this legislation in hopes that committee members can as well. And I stand here for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Representative Erdahl.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And of course, the cost of $47.7 million is a bit daunting for us. Although certainly I'm not disputing your needs or the cost, just it's with all the projects and all the requests we have, coming up with 47.7 for one project is hard. Do you have any ways that this can be scaled down or phased?
Mayor Freeze or Representative Jacobs?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mayor Freeze.
All right, Mr. Chairman. No, the project itself cannot be phased, and then part of that is because when you're building a structure like this, if you try to go in phases with that, you're needing to be able to process that waste. So if you're starting one part of that project without that second part of the project, you need to be able to transport that waste, you need to be able to continue that project, and also when you're considering supplies. What I would draw attention to is when you're looking at 5 communities involved in this project and you break down that 47 million, you're looking at less than 10 million per community, which I think is very fair when you look at many of the projects around the state that are looking between 10 and 20 million dollars. So in this aspect, I think an ask of 47 million for one project is not terribly daunting when you look at spreading that cost out among the 5 communities.
Representative Dahl.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Mr. Mayor, those are important factors to consider, and I'm sure as we go through this, we'll be looking at that.
Representative Skraba.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Board. So Goodhue, Wanamingo, Zumbrota, Pine Island, the Titawinta community, are you all gonna be putting stuff in? I remember from the other day.
Very good.
Yes, yes.
Great job, by the way.
Is everyone gonna be putting any in, or, you know?
47.7 million is only half of the price of the project. So, yeah, the
right.
other communities are putting up the other 47 million.
Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
See no other questions, closing comments, Representative Jacobs.
Well, just thank you so much for hearing our project here today, and I hope we'll be able to provide this very important service to these 5 communities.
Thank you, Representative Jacob. Next on the agenda, House File 1544, Representative Hill. Representative Hill, I understand that you have a DE1 amendment for reference. Can you explain the DE and then proceed?
Thank you, Chair Lee, members of the committee. My understanding of the amendment is to put the bill in the shape that we'd like to have it in. There was some earlier versions of this appropriation request, and this is the current request.
Thank you. Please proceed with the presentation.
Thank you, Chair Lee, and thank you again, members of the committee, for hearing House File 1544. City of Stillwater is a popular destination, and I know that many of the committee members have visited. And it's our hope that you enjoyed your time there as much as we enjoy our time there. It's not just a destination for members of the metro or the state area, but we draw visitors from around the country and around the world. And our calendar spanning events draw hundreds of thousands of visitors to this regional hub each year. Most of these visitors spend time at one of our few parks that are right downtown along the St. Croix riverfront. This bill would help Stillwater to make much needed improvements to these regional jewels to continue sharing these with the world. I have with me City Administrator Joe Coleman and Mayor Ted Kozlowski. And in a moment, I'd like to turn things over to Mayor Kozlowski, but I did some background checking, and I just want to assure the committee that we don't have a conflict of interest with Representative Kozlowski. No connection there. But I think it is important to note that Ted and I are classmates from Stillwater High School in the class of 1995. And I know part of Ted's life took him to the West Coast, and part of my earlier life took me to the East Coast. And we have laughed quite a bit over the recent years that Stillwater drew us home. And it is a wonderful community. And one of my favorite aspects of our community is that we love to share with the world. So we are bringing this proposal to you today to improve our destination for visitors. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mayor Kozlowski.
Thank you. Welcome, Mayor. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Ted Kozlowski, Mayor of Stillwater, Minnesota. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Capital Investment Committee, and I'm very excited to finally meet Representative Kozlowski. When I first saw your sign in the yard in Duluth, I almost got in a car accident. I'm like, there's another one. But I appreciate the opportunity to speak on House File 1544. And certainly thank you, Representative Hill, for carrying this bill and supporting this for us. I'm also pleased to announce that we've got bipartisan support on this from our state senator as well. And, really, we're really proud to not just be a regional destination, but like Josiah, Representative Hill said, but a destination from visitors from around the world who attend events like we just had our World Snow Sculpting Championship in Stillwater. We hosted teams from Turkey, Ecuador, all over the globe came to visit Stillwater. And, and being close to 3M, we're kind of a 3M town. We get a lot of international visitors from 3M as well. We get a lot of visitors that flock to our riverfront parks, including Lowell Park, that's been part of the Stillwater city landscape since the 1800s. We also have Lumberjack Landing and Bridgeview Parks. These were recently acquired by the city of Stillwater to the tune of about $10 million that our residents invested in our riverfront. And with a population of under 20,000, we really need the state's help to make the much needed improvements to these parks. It's really not, there's part of it, there are some new amenities for sure. There's a lot of restoration and rehabilitation that frankly we've been neglecting as a city. There's a lot of cost to maintaining the birthplace of Minnesota and our historic downtown. It's becoming too much of a burden. I think with some of the environmental impacts, if you look at flooding along the St. Croix River, or Wild and Scenic River, I actually charted it out from 1950. If you look back to 1950 when we started keeping track of river levels on the St. Croix, over half of the significant flood events have happened since the year 2000. This is really messing up the shoreline and our riverfront parks in downtown Stillwater. The climate change that we're seeing locally is just costing us a lot. You add that on top of the historic character of our town, and it's really just too much of a burden for a city of 20,000 residents to bear. So that's really where we need your help. We need to make these parks more ADA accessible. We need to restore these historic landmarks. We have 2 historic buildings that are on the National Register that were moved from our friends' neighboring community, City of Oak Park Heights. MnDOT moved them into Stillwater as part of the bridge, the St. Croix Crossing project. These historic structures are really important to the story of Minnesota, the story of a region, the story of the Midwest. And we frankly just don't have the means to preserve them or do anything with those. And so that's a big part of the proposal that you see before you. We also need to make some trail and trail connectivity improvements. Again, the trail was put in by MnDOT as part of that St. Croix Crossing project. And then there's a lot of little issues and hiccups with the new trail coming through a historic town for ADA accessibility and things like that create some pain points for a lot of people, and we could use your help. And then we also have some shoreline improvement stuff, again, really directly related to the flooding that we're seeing on the St. Croix River. So with that, there is a lot of urgency to this project. I feel like we're going to be accused, something that we do on city council is there's this notion of demolition by neglect. We try to preserve the historic character of our town. And sometimes people try to skirt their way around that by just letting their old historic home fall into ruin and disrepair to the point where it becomes the point of no return. And that's demolition by neglect. With these historic structures, as well as the house that's located on North Eiffel property and some of our historic landmarks downtown like the gazebo, if we don't get funds, we will be accused of demolition by neglect. So I can't stress enough the sense of urgency that we have on this project. And really need your help. So with that, on behalf of the city of Stillwater and its residents, I appreciate your consideration and will stand for any questions.
Chair Zhang.
Thank you, Chair Lee and Representative Hill and Mr. Mayor. Well, 20 years ago, I used to come down on Stillwater with my high school buddies, and we would come fishing there. And then a few years later, my college buddies, we would drive from Northfield all the way up to Stillwater on the weekend just to come fishing. And just want to say that Stillwater has been a very welcoming city.
Good.
And we would do night fishing at nighttime.
Okay.
No one would call cops on us. Very welcoming city, and just I'm very happy to see that you guys have this project coming, because I remember there were a few years where you would come and parts of the riverfront would be flooded, and we can't fish here, so we'll go on the bridge and fish on the bridge. And so I'm glad that this project is coming forward, and I look forward to seeing the fruition of the project, and hope to come back to visit and do some more fishing.
You really need, if you haven't been and checked out the lift bridge since it's been restored, it's essentially a brand-new 1932 bridge. It's like a perfectly restored 1932 car, and it's all pedestrian now, and you can fish off of it. But it's gorgeous. I would love to see you all there and checking out this bridge. It's a really cool thing.
So, Mr. Mayor, on the handout that you have given us, the total project cost is 12.5 and the request is 12.5. Is there an expectation that we will have a local contribution to this proposal?
I think if we would have, frankly, if we would have done this right, and it probably falls on me, I've been the mayor on council for 10 years. When we acquired this property, I think we've kind of prided ourselves, and I don't know, there's only been 2 incidences that I can see back to the 50s where we've asked the state for any help. And they were both relatively small sewer projects, and we were happy to match those projects dollar for dollar when we did those. Had we done this right, frankly, this would have been a matching project. We would have came here and asked you to acquire the property with us. And because we've already put in $10 million to acquire these 2 parks. Had we known that there was going to be an additional $10 million in expenses at the time we acquired these things, that would have been a great project to prevent the development along a wild and scenic river and to save these properties and basically keep them from development and keep them as public amenities. So I think had we packaged this right, you would have seen a match 50-50 on what would be a large park project to, maintain the character of our riverfront and the, the integrity of the wild and scenic river. So I guess the way we're looking at it now is we've made that $10 million investment. We've got a $1 million donation to help preserve these buildings that one of our citizens came up and is helping us out with. So that's where we're at right now. That said, if we have to phase this in, there is about $5-6 million worth of things that are really critical, like in the next year or 2, that we just simply can't afford to do right now. But if we had to phase this in and match this to a degree, we'd be happy to try and figure that out as best we can.
It'll be helpful if you could let us know what are those critical pieces to the project. Representative Lilly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just mostly a comment, just saying that the city is very much a destination and people are coming there. I've been to many of your events and it's people that are local or beyond and worldwide even. It's really amazing. And I highly suggest you get to one that I got to last summer. I'd never been to this. They had a great big pumpkin drop. Nothing like watching a pumpkin, like a 1,500-pound pumpkin drop from 500 feet. Anyways.
That is a fun one. We used to fill it up with candy, but that got a little dicey with the kids. And I'm proud to say my dad is the one who's responsible for tying the knot on the 2,000-pound pumpkin while we raise it up with a crane. But it is a lot of fun. Thank you for bringing that up, Representative.
Representative Owen, quick closing comments.
Thank you, Chair Lee, and thank you to the members of the committee. We really appreciate the time, and we ask for your support on these important projects, and we hope you'll visit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, House File 2112, Representative Kozlowski. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Lee and members of the Capital Investment Committee for the opportunity to introduce a very important project for our region with House File 2112. It would be the construction of a new air traffic control tower at the Duluth International Airport, which is a tremendous opportunity for the state to support the continued growth of air commerce and a successful aviation cluster in Duluth. So we have a unique opportunity to leverage significant funding available through the bipartisan infrastructure law that would not otherwise come to Minnesota. Our $14 million request before you of the state would leverage another $38 million in federal funding through a program that is not likely to be reauthorized when it sunsets in a few years. So the time is now, and here to tell you more about the project is Tom Werner, Executive Director of the Duluth Airport Authority.
Welcome, Director. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Thank you, Chair Lee. My name is Tom Werner. I'm the Executive Director of the Duluth Airport Authority. Thank you, Chair Lee, and members of the Capital Investment Committee for the opportunity to testify today. I'd also like to thank Representative Kozlowski for their leadership and advocacy on this important project. The Duluth International Airport, DLH, provides a vital service to Northeast Minnesota with a unique traffic mix of passenger service cargo, medical, and military flights totaling 67,000 annual operations. DLH is home to Cirrus Aircraft, the Minnesota Air National Guard's 148th Fighter Wing, Monaco Air Duluth, Lake Superior College's Center for Advanced Aviation, and passenger service providers such as Delta, United, and Minnesota's own Sun Country Airlines. DLH is the center of gravity for an aviation cluster that contributes $760 million annually to the region's economy and provides over 6,000 jobs, direct, indirect, and induced to our area. For perspective, MnDOT studied the annual economic impact of the state's 135 public airports in 2019. Excluding MSP and its 6 relievers, DLH is 76% of the $1.6 billion economic impact of outstate airports in Minnesota. Over $111 million in infrastructure investments have been completed in the past 10 years. Another $144 million in infrastructure renewal projects are planned through 2030. To sustain the growth of air commerce and services that are essential to Northeast Minnesota, a new air traffic control facility is critical to maintaining efficiency and safety. DLH's unique mix of fast-moving military jets, research and development flights, slower-moving recreational aircraft, helicopters, and commercial service create a complex airspace where air traffic controllers quarterback the movement and are vital to aviation safety. The Duluth International Airport's air traffic control tower is 70 years old and at the end of its useful life. According to the FAA, it's one of 26 locally owned air traffic control towers that are staffed by federal air traffic controllers in the United States. DLH's tower has the distinction of being the 3rd oldest air traffic facility in the country. Historically, there has not been a federal program to fund the replacement of a locally owned air traffic control tower. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act passed by Congress established a competitive grant program to fund the replacement of locally owned air traffic control facilities. This $5 billion 5-year program to secure funding that will pay 95% of eligible costs to construct the new $52 million air traffic control tower at Duluth. We're asking the state legislature to help us leverage considerable federal funding by providing $14 million. The state's investment would provide a 5% match for the $38 million federal grant application. It will enable final design of the new facility, commission the FAA to participate in the design process, and demolition of 3 blighted buildings and the current tower to make way for the new tower. The state's investment in this project will help secure funding that would not otherwise come to Minnesota. We are poised to support the next generation of air commerce in our region. A state-of-the-art air traffic facility will ensure DLH supports safe air travel for decades to come. Thank you for your consideration for our project and your work on behalf of the residents of the state. I stand for questions.
Thank you, Director. So on line 1.9 to 1.11, said a portion of the appropriation shall be used for matching funds. And so is the 14 million the full matching fund, or is there an amount within the 14 that's the matching fund?
Thank you for the question, Chair Lee. There's about $2 million that would make up the 5% matching funds to the federal grant. The larger $14 million package includes other elements such as design work, the demolition of the 3 buildings that would need to make way for the tower.
And then Director, earlier this session, we passed a transportation bill with some matching funds language from Mr. Lee. That cannot be used for the $2 million that's needed for this project then? Mr. Lee?
Mr. Chair and Representative Lee, Mr. Chair, yes, the IIJA appropriation from earlier this year was all trunk highway funds, not airport funds.
Okay. See no other questions, any closing comments, Representative Kozlowski?
I just want to say thank you again for the opportunity to hear this really important bill and ask for your support. As we heard, the regional economic impact, sustaining really important and good paying jobs in our area, and also the robust aviation industry, and seek your help in making sure that we unlock these dollars for Minnesota.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, House File 2265, Representative Kozlowski. Please proceed.
Okay. Thank you, Chair and members. Here for House File 2265, which is St. Louis County's Clarity Mental Health Project. This is a critically needed behavioral health crisis center that's designed by people with lived experience to integrate culturally affirming approach to a really growing need for mental health, for behavioral health and substance use, as well as community crisis response services to people as well as to kids of every age in our area. It uses a rather unique approach which separates it from most other crisis centers that have been funded through this committee. That's partly why we've considered it so special and why St. Louis County continues to pursue it. Many of you already know the Clarity Project, as this committee has actually already funded it back in the 2018 bonding bill. And I would like to hand it over to my testifier, St. Louis County Commissioner Patrick Boyle, who will be joining us online to describe to you more about the Clarity Project and why it hasn't yet materialized and how St. Louis County plans to deliver it and to address really urgent mental health and community crisis response needs in our region.
Welcome, Chair Boyle. Please identify yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you. Patrick Boyle, Commissioner, St. Louis County, current chair, and continued to work as a nurse practitioner in a clinic setting with the Fond du Lac tribe for the past 17 years. Thank you, Chair Lee, members, Representative Kozlowski as author, and especially thank you for letting me testify virtually as the city of Duluth prepares for the 49th round of snow starting this afternoon until Friday of another foot. I just want to tell of a very unique story that we have up north here. It's called the Clarity Project. It was started 8 years ago when our hospitals, Ascension and St. Luke's, brought the county, the city of Duluth, law enforcement, the judicial system, and nonprofits to the table. And they asked the question of how do we do a better delivery of care for those experiencing acute mental health crisis, instead of waiting hours and hours in an ER setting. As you well know, members, we are not alone. This is a state issue and a national issue of better care. Mental health continues to be the #1 community healthcare need in the Arrowhead region, as it has been for the past decade. St. Louis County was successful in championing bonding specifically for Greater Minnesota mental health. It was awarded bonding dollars of $3.7 million in 2018 and $1.3 million in 2020. Unfortunately, the $3.7 million was given back to the state last year due to constraints on the project and a 3-year project of dealing with an epidemic on top of it. Today, what we are asking you, Mr. Chair, is that the $1.3 million that St. Louis County still has from the initial bonding be in lieu of bonding to cash, where St. Louis County will match, where we can partner with the nonprofit HDC, Human Development Center. What this gets you is a wash where we already have that $1.3 million done. This will be a 10-year project, a pilot project, the first in the state. We are inventing the wheel, and what it's going to include is a one-stop shop, including mobile crisis units, dual diagnosis with Suboxone treatment, and children's dental, along, and this is the very exciting part, with our education systems we're talking to, where we will be able to get the next teaching generation of providers through the University of Minnesota residency program, UMD pharmaceutical program, and St. Scholastica's nurse practitioner mental health program. Mr. Chair, we need to get rid of mental health as a stereotype. They deserve the same access to care, acute care, as hypertension or someone with diabetes. I hope this pilot works and branches off across the entire state of Minnesota. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chair Boyle. Closing comments, Representative Kozlowski.
Thank you so much, Chair, and to this committee. This is a very, very critical, important project to our region. We know that our needs are not unique to Duluth, but you know, as we heard, that we are really creating the blueprint for how we meet those needs with our community-centered solutions. And so right now, we know it's a time to invest in mental health, to advance racial equity, and to really pour into our systems of care. And so I urge your support for this project that would do all of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, House File 1139, Representative Hicks. Please proceed, Representative Hicks.
Hello, thank you, Chair and committee members. Thank you so much for hearing this bill today. This proposal provides funding to improve a critical regional asset for individuals and families in Minnesota, to build a regional multi-use expedition center in Olmsted County. This project has been a consistent priority for our community and for the county, seeking state bonding dollars since 2018. The center will be located on 60 acres of land owned by Olmsted County in the heart of Rochester, known as Graham Park, which is the site of a variety of community activities, including our regional farmers market, youth hockey, and many community events. There are over 750,000 visitors to Graham Park each year just for our hockey events. This site has been a regional asset in Minnesota for more than 100 years for agriculture, community events, entertainment, and youth athletics. As one of the fastest growing regions in the state, the new multi-use center will meet the demonstrated regional and community needs, support more year-round activities at Graham Park Complex, and generate new economic opportunities for our region. Olmsted County conducted a detailed market analysis that is guiding the planning for the kinds of activities that will meet community and regional needs here. The enhancements, which include the farmers market and other opportunities. The design will meet local needs and regional needs without competing with other venues in our area, such as the Mayo Civic Center. The new center will provide an accessible and affordable option for various regional and community events, ethnic and cultural celebrations and festivities, and entertainment and leisure activities. The project provides a local and regional option for community celebrations that is affordable and focused on family activities and cultural events. The Graham Complex already offers other accessible and affordable events, such as the weekly farmers market and special events like drive-in movies that were shown during the COVID pandemic. My family and many others throughout southeastern Minnesota enjoy coming to buy farm-to-table produce and goods from our local farmers. We enjoy our county fair, cultural events, sporting events, and many other amazing family-friendly events all year long. The Graham Center will support individuals, families, and community groups and businesses throughout southeastern Minnesota and the entire Midwest region. Olmsted County Commissioner Sheila Cascaden is joining us remotely to provide more details about the project.
Welcome, Commissioner. You got 2 minutes, so please identify yourself and proceed.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, thank you very much for allowing me to have 2 minutes. When you come to Rochester, Minnesota, you probably think of Mayo Clinic, or you probably think of our Civic Center where we often hold major conventions. Think about, however, the famous corn tower, the water tower that's shaped like an ear of corn. That is the location we're talking about for Graham Park. Graham Park, as Representative Hicks says, has been owned by Olmsted County for over 100 years. We have been making substantial investments into Graham Park. We have 4 sheets of ice there for youth hockey. We host the county fair. We have been making improvements into the buildings, but it comes to a point when you have a 100-year-old facility. We've restored some of the historic buildings, but some of the buildings really have reached their life expectancy. And now is the opportunity, based on the market analysis we've done, to create a modern facility that will meet our community and our region's needs, our families' needs, for a variety of uses. It's an urban rural center where people can gather, celebrate, and learn together. We see this as a regional statewide asset for everyone, and we've already demonstrated with our market analysis what the specific kind of programming can be, and the fact that it will have a strong economic impact as well, and really have a good return on state investment. The county is prepared to match the state funding 50-50. We will be using it for the exhibition center and to enhance the farmers market, which is which draws farmers for farm-to-table sale of produce and products from about 50 miles and has 120 vendors. If you want to host a wedding at an affordable location, some of the historic buildings on that campus are booked a year or so in advance because it is a great location. Help us make this all it can be for our region and for our community, a place for families to gather, individuals to learn, a place for communities to celebrate. And we will be very happy to match your state investment. I think that's probably my 2 minutes, Mr. Chair. I've tried to be concise, but we would welcome you to come see that facility, the park anytime, and show you our dream for a facility that meets much broader community and regional needs.
Thank you, Commissioner. Can you identify yourself for the record?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I should know better. Sheila Kiskaden, Olmsted County Commissioner.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Hicks. Next on the agenda, House File 2370, Representative Wolgamott. Please proceed.
Well, thank you, Chair Lee, and my fellow members of the Capital Investment Committee. I am honored and excited to be here this afternoon to present House File 2370, which will allow for the completion of much-needed improvements at the St. Cloud Regional Airport. Right now, Mr. Chair, one of the runways needs new navigational aid and approach lighting equipment to address both a safety issue and a capacity issue. What the bill before you does is provide $3.9 million to cover the cost of doing two things. First, replacing and relocating a new approach lighting system, and second, replacing and relocating the instrument landing system further down the runway. Completing these projects at the same time will allow the airport to eliminate what is called a displaced threshold on the runway, which means 500 feet of the runway is usable for takeoff, but not for landing because of the placement of the instrument landing system. In closing, Mr. Chair, replacing, relocating this almost 40-year-old equipment will increase capacity by providing enough runway length for larger planes to use the St. Cloud Regional Airport, as well as increasing safety by providing additional length for landings in inclement weather. This benefits the whole region, it benefits the whole state by reducing traffic at MSP, helping foster an environment in greater Minnesota for businesses to grow, and giving the members of my community better choices for flying. That's what the bill does. That's why I'm asking for your support. And with that, Mr. Chair, I do have a testifier who can provide further insight to you on the need for this investment in House File 2370.
Members, there is a DE1 amendment for your reference. Director, you have 3 minutes. Please proceed. Identify yourself, proceed.
Thank you, Chair Lee, and members of the committee. My name is Bill Towell. I'm the Airport Executive Director of the St. Cloud Regional Airport Authority. I want to thank you for allowing me to testify today, and thank you to Representative Wolgamott for carrying this. It does have bipartisan support from Representative Perryman as well. Again, the project consists of replacing and relocating our instrument landing system and our approach lighting system, right? These are two navigational aids that help guide airplanes into our runway during inclement weather, so for safety reasons. We've got support from MnDOT Aeronautics and the Federal Aviation Administration. MnDOT Aeronautics has money to replace the instrument landing system portion of it, but there's not funding for the approach lighting system. That's the lion's share of this request, is that approach lighting system, and the timing of it is probably most critical. So we need to do them at the same time, which means we would, if we do them at the same time, we can move them, relocate them 500 feet further, closer to the threshold of the runway, and then that removes that displaced threshold. So again, being able to use the full 7,500 feet of the runway.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Representative Wolgamott. Next on the agenda, we have Representative Skraba, House File 1649. Welcome and proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and fellow members. I'm here to request $1.52 million to take care of deferred maintenance on a piece of leased DNR property that has been home to the International Wolf Center for the past 30 years. The International Wolf Center has an interest in obtaining a long-term lease for this facility, but it is hesitant to make that commitment without the deferred maintenance. With me today is Grant Spickelmeyer, the Executive Director of the International Wolf Center, to explain the request and provide more details. Grant.
Welcome, Director. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Yes, I'm Grant Spickelmeyer, Executive Director of the International Wolf Center. Thank you, Chair Lee and representatives, for taking time to hear my testimony. The mission of the International Wolf Center is to advance the survival of wolf populations by educating people about wolves, their relationship to wildlands, and the human role in their future. For over 40 years, nearly 40 years, our organization has worked to help the public have a more informed understanding about wolves and wolf behavior and celebrate the legacy of wolves and wolf research here in Minnesota. Founded in 1985, the International Wolf Center did not have a permanent home until 1993 when donations combined with state funds renovated an old U.S. Forest Service building into a one-of-a-kind visitor attraction that now sees 40,000 visitors a year. As Representative Skraba said, the DNR is our facility manager and has worked with us over the years to make small repairs, but recently several larger capital projects have arisen that the DNR has been unable to address. This includes a roof that's been leaking since 2014 and is threatening several spaces, including our brand new $1.3 million Discover Wolves exhibit. The length of time it's taken to get this fixed has made us concerned that water damage is making the underlying structure of our roof unstable, something we're especially sensitive to as we watch what happened at Duluth's Miller Hill Mall. We also have an HVAC system that needs to be replaced according to the DNR's engineer, and you can see the other projects listed in front of you in your packet. We really appreciate you considering this support. This will allow us to continue our important wolf education work. It will also help protect state assets and should reduce the overall drain on DNR staff resources resulting from the constant small repair jobs that the failing systems have created. We've appreciated over 30 years of partnership with the state of Minnesota and the city of Ely and the St. Louis County as we celebrate and highlight one of the state's most iconic species and help foster tourism to the northeast part of our state. We ask for your support to help continue this partnership for decades to come. Thank you. I'll now stand for questions.
Thank you, Director, and thank you, Representative Skraba. Representative Lilly, can I have a motion to approve the minutes for March 8th?
Yes, Mr. Chair, happy to move those, the minutes from March 8th.
Representative Lilly, move approval of the minutes for March 8th. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion prevails and the minutes are approved. So members, before we head out, I just wanted to note that we are having a hearing on Friday, March 17th from 1 to 4:30. It is extended in order to hear many more bills for us. And so this meeting is adjourned.